The StreamSets DataOps platform is the world's first single platform for building smart data pipelines across hybrid and multi-cloud architectures. You can build, run, monitor, and manage data pipelines confidently with an end-to-end data integration platform that's built for constant change. Amp up your productivity with easy-to-navigate interface with hundreds of pre-built sources and destinations. Once you're up and running, your smart data pipelines are resilient to data drift, those ongoing and unexpected changes in your data infrastructure and pipelines. Finally, you have one single pane of glass for operating and monitoring all of your data pipelines. Get started today building data pipelines in minutes for free at streamsets.com/tagdata. The first 10 listeners of this podcast that subscribe to StreamSets Professional tier will receive 2 months free after their first month.
Hello, I'm Dr. Beverly Wright, and welcome to Tag Data Talk. With us today, we have Anqi Zou, and we're talking about connecting and leveraging academic partnerships within data science. So good to have you on the show, Anqi.
I'm very, very excited. It's definitely a topic that's very near and dear to my heart and my work. Yeah, excited to have this platform to share my thoughts.
Absolutely. Yes, I've always admired what you do with academic and corporate relationships. So I'm really glad to have you. Let's start off with an easy question. Tell us, why are you so cool?
I don't know if I'm cool, but I would say I'm just a curious soul that's still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. I actually started college as an accounting major, very soon realized that accounting is not something I'm interested in. Ended up doing a computer science and mathematics double major. And later on, got my master's degree in computer science and never thought I was going to work for a bank. But looking back, this is actually the fourth banking entity I've been with. I'm with Truist Bank today. Just about 8 months ago, I joined our very newly established artificial intelligence team.
Oh.
But prior to that, I ran our university partnership, including establishing our very first data science rotational program, as well as running our summer internship for the last 3 years. So, yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Tell me about this AI team.
Yeah.
Is this because I know SunTrust was my bank for a while, and I was there for a minute, and then there was BB&T, and this merged and became Truist, and now there's an AI team. That's so cool.
Yeah, so we're a small and mighty AI acceleration team.
Oh.
And we were, my manager, Bjorn Ostral, officially joined the bank in March of last year. And there are 3 of us with the title Artificial Intelligence Innovation Leaders on his team. Essentially, we serve as the internal strategists and consultants, really to work with all of the lines of business at the bank to identify, prioritize, and execute some of the AI capabilities. As part of that, we also look at some of the foundational work, for any of us who's been banking in the past, on the risk side, really make sure we have a good governance and, policy in place. Actually, just 2 or 3 weeks ago, a number of the regulators, such as the Fed and then FDIC, also signaled that there's going to be more prescribed guidance around AI or machine learning model governance for the financial services industry. So a lot of work there, and we're on the back end of a 3-year merger, as you alluded to, between SunTrust and BB&T, which is the largest financial services industry merger in the last 15 years.
Wow.
So the last 3 years, there's definitely been a lot of focus on the integration, but at the same time, we have so many pockets of innovation around, applying AI and machine learning and automation to different use cases across the bank. So this team really provides some of the synergy around that and be able to provide some, really bring people together as the company grow in size and make a bigger impact. And academic partnership has been a key part of our strategy from day one, right? So excited to share with you about that today.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you have the best job in America. Like you're an AI strategist leader at a major financial institution that apparently really embraces innovation. That's just amazing. Congratulations. So yeah, we're talking today about connecting and leveraging academic partnerships within data science. So what do we even mean? What does that mean to have an academic partnerships with a company?
Right. So, many of you are probably aware of, universities playing on football field, right, or baseball park that are sponsored by company, or you see buildings on campus, right, that are sponsored by big name corporations. In particular, at Truist, in the data analytics field, we really look at our university, our academic, let's say academic, not just limited to universities and colleges, right? As a kind of give and take, right? Mutually beneficial investment relationship. And we follow this framework we call the TLC of data analytics: talent, learning, and community, right? So what does that really mean? In terms of talent, that's the obvious one, right? You want to have access to, the brightest students who are, learning about the newest in the industry or the academia field, right? And then a lot of the universities, because of their research focus, they actually have some of the infrastructure, right? Because partnership with software company, platform company that might not be established at your corporation. So this is a great way of tapping into that talent, right? And leveraging the infrastructure, almost test it out, what are some of the capability we should be investing later on at the corporation. So that's on the talent side. And then on the learning side is, again, a lot of people, when we think about university partnership, they think about hiring for interns, hiring for these early career program, students fresh out of college or grad school. But at the same time, we want to take care of our existing teammates who have been with the company for 10, 20 years. So the learning, upskilling, and reskilling, topics become very, very important as well. As we all know, being in the industry, any one of us, even for a couple years or over 10 years and 20 years, you really start seeing, there's always new tools and new technology, and depends on the industry or the vertical you are in, right? There is a ecosystem that aligns with that. So I would say, we embrace this almost like a pyramid, right? You have a mindset, skill set, and tool set, right? So you have the growth mindset that your employees can learn about anything. You support their learning and their growth. And the middle, this is the tools, the skill set you're looking for, right? Either to develop or to hire. Now, in the field of data science, that could be how do you develop a problem statement? That's the very, very first one. How do you translate a data problem, a business problem into a data problem? How do you perform data engineering, collect the data? How do you run the analytics? How do you develop model, validate the model, implementation? These are different, skill set we're looking to hire or to develop. And lastly, it depends on the company. We, look at different ecosystem of tool sets, right? That's where you specifically work with some of the universities. Sometimes they have, boot camps and training curriculum that can easily be borrowed or, just shared with your employees. So really make sure that upskilling, reskilling is a big part of our portfolio as well. Last but certainly not the least, I kind of call myself a data science community builder.
Yes.
Is that you hire a data scientist, what do you do with them now, right? You want to create a sense of a belonging, right? A community of data professionals, almost like a business resource group or, employee resource group, but these affinity groups that companies have. You want to make sure you have a community for these data scientists, and the academic partnership is a great way for them to feel they're part of a, something bigger, of a bigger community. They're developing the next generation of, data science professional. They are kind of providing that mentorship and sometimes receiving that reverse mentorship with the students who are in the program and connecting with the professor in crafting the best curriculum, right? So at the end of the day, we'll be able to hire the students with the right skill set and the mindset that we're embracing as a corporate, partner.
Okay. Very nice. So you mentioned a couple of paradigms I wanted to make sure I got down, or I guess they're frameworks. One was the TLC, and you said that stands for, what was it?
Talent, learning, and community.
Community. Okay, gotcha. That's nice. And then the other one you mentioned was this mindset. It's kind of like I picture like a lasagna, layers of mindset, skill set, and tool set, and how those integrate together. So the importance of working with a school is, and you mentioned a few things you kind of hinted on, but I wanted to unpack it a little bit more. You talked about advising each other on both sides of the equation. So corporate advising academia on things related to program and curriculum. And then how does the academic community help advise corporations, for example? What are some of the ways that they can help?
Absolutely. You start with, a lot of these either graduate or undergraduate program, they have an advisory board. It's a great way to get company executives or managers to get involved so they can provide that insight with the curriculum design, right? And then you look at, for example, if we were to work with university on a class project, at Truist, I think we've run at least 10, 15, probably close to 20 different projects in the last, 5 to 7 years. Mm-hmm. And you get to see such different and fresh perspective from the students, right? Because we have if you work in credit decisioning, right, you automatically think about logistic regression is the only way to go to start with, right? And you can, look at the students, really ask them, if you were to approach these things with a fresh pair of eyes, obviously do your own research, what would that look like, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes they're able to come up with the different things that, maybe it's small, maybe it's not their entire methodology, but something in there that sparked the interest that the company would like to further explore. So that's where we see a lot of, kind of a lot of the value being generated, right? And then another thing I'll touch upon a little bit later is that getting the leadership buy-in mm-hmm. from very, 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 very beginning, and also make sure there's a good, almost like a communication and socialization strategy to bring awareness to these type of projects. So there's a good sustainability, right, with the university and with these cohort of students. Sometimes you might have students that started as actually I've hired past interns and past full-time data scientists who started from working on a project with us, for a semester, and the team really enjoyed, and then hired them for the summer to continue work on a particular project, and later on they come in as full-time data scientists. They're rotating through different teams. Nevertheless, that they've already essentially been with the company for 6 months or up to a year at that point, right? That's very deep knowledge that they have, and at the same time they are also kind of giving back to the school in a way that they they are sharing their story, their job search story. A lot of time untraditional, right? It's not just about how many jobs you apply. It is about the relationship you build through these networking or mentoring sessions. And that's a great way to also build goodwill and reputation around the company's investment into both the early career talent, as well as making sure there is a good learning environment within the company once they join the organization as well. So these are just some of the importance of this partnership.
Oh, I love it. This is great. This is really good nuggets here. So first of all, I want to tell you, you are definitely a data science community builder. So if you want that label, I think everybody that knows you will know that is absolutely accurate. Secondly, just to kind of summarize some of the ways that academia collaborates with the corporate side that you would suggest, not just necessarily at Truist or whatever, but just in general, some of the touch points. So one of the things you mentioned was helping to advise each other and different factors related to data science. The second one is you talked about curriculum development, and that would come from corporate to academics to help them understand what's going on outside of the classroom and how can they better equip students so that when they graduate, they're more camera ready. You talked about providing class projects from companies to the academic or from academic institutions to the companies, and also the unbiased nature of students. And it's funny. I was just talking to UCLA today. I have a speaking thing with them on Friday with their master's in quantitative economics, I think is what it's called. And I was explaining to them about the benefit of companies going to schools to do a project. It's not that they can't do the project themselves. Most of the time they have enough resources to do that project. But it also sets up a talent pipeline. And the companies are always amazed to see how the new talent would attack it. How would the new talent approach this problem? What would the new talent think about these solutions? So I think that's another thing that you had brought up, looking at new methods. You also talked about the leadership buy-in and connecting them with this relationship. So can you, in just a second, can you unpack that a little bit more to make sure I understand what you mean by that? And then last thing I wrote down that you mentioned was that academic institutions can help companies establish a more continuous learning environment. And without the help of the academic institution, companies sort of struggle with coming up with that. But tell me more about this leadership buy-in. Like how does that support, enhance, or how might it sort of make it harder if you don't have it? Like, tell me where it ties in.
Right. So how I look at university partnership is no different from any other investment project we have internally, right? And we've all been there. You have a lot of people want to do this thing, right? It could be a data science project, could be something else. And then you get everyone very jazzed up and you have a first year seed funding started. But then, next year, maybe people are too busy, right? And then they're like, well, maybe we're not going to do this year. And then the third year, there's never, actual headcounts or resources. So when I say about leadership buying, it's really to build out a long-term strategy, at least 3 years, right? What are we trying to the first year, you were getting to know the school, you were getting to know the students, you were new on campus in this particular fashion, right? It's all about relationship building, right? And then, if first year you might have some lesson learned, I'm going to talk about some of the challenges later, right? And how do you make sure that people are aware of these projects that are going on? We've seen many times in a professional world, you have something very, very cool that are being built by the technical team, but the leaders were never aware. So what we do is, like I said, we have these, you build out a strategy, you socialize that with the senior stakeholders, whether these are, the team that are providing the data, maybe a hosting team that's going to sponsor this project, understand at the end of the day, what business value are they delivering? What business problems are they solving? Right? Again, like you said, it's not like the company can't do these projects their own way, right? So, and also make sure that people are aware, it's going to take some time to ramp up. What does that second year look like? Maybe second year we can do 2 projects, and the third year maybe we get into a better pipeline, we can learn more, right? Or skill up, we can take to the next level, right? Make sure you have a engagement plan. When do you want to give the teams a lot of heads up? We always come back to you for project proposals twice a year, right? And it does require some, participation from the teams who are sponsoring. Make sure the leaders, if we're doing a presentation at the end of the day, right? Make sure the leaders are also aware you have the key stakeholders who are, using the rubrics and giving them credit and to let them know, is this actually bringing business value, right? And where can they take this project further? This is such a good learning experience for both sides. So that's when I'm talking about leadership buy-in, to have a long-term strategy to make sure people are aware.
Yep, and that way you're sort of assured that there's some kind of visibility to the top, and they know that this partnership exists, and they can therefore deliberately plan it out. So it's not just kind of happening, that there's a real strategy engagement plan for it. I love it. So this all sounds great, but there must be some challenges. There must be some things that make it really hard. Tell me some of the top things that would make it really hard, so that the people that are listening can know that in advance and try to get in front of it. Like what are some of the top challenges when forming academic industry partnerships in data science?
Right. I would say, data science projects in nature can be very different from, say, you're working with MBA or, a business school or just completely, have a project proposal without sharing any sort of data, right? So where I've seen the most challenge, and this is not anybody's fault, right? Especially with larger corporations, is with legal and sourcing, right? So it's not going to be overnight that we get the contract in place. The different universities and different, companies might have certain criteria they need to meet. Sometimes the the school and the academic program depends on the size, the support, or whether it's a public or private school, because public schools are essentially government, state entities, right? So being able to have ample time to work on the legal document, right, is crucial. And then when it comes to data sourcing, you really have to think through internally what data can be used to share with a external partner, even though you have all the NDA, IP protection in place, right? Really, intellectual property, that's what I mean. You want to make sure that, you think through different approaches, right? If you were to use real company data, right, you want the students who have the same experience as a teammate, a full-time teammate. Something you might want to think about is issuing them company devices, right? And then onboard them essentially as temp employees or interns to be able to have limited access to work on this data. As part of that, you have to check with your legal and labor department about whether your company has requirement that you need to compensate the students that way, right? Depends on whether that's already worked in with the contract at the overall level. And then, if you were using either kind of anonymized data or synthesized, generated data, or even kind of in banking data that's over 7 years old can be, considered as non-live data, right? Oh. That's another approach that you can use. You still need to anonymize it, but it's usually okay to share with, with the external party for research purposes in a limited capacity. And last but not least is to consider what are some of the publicly available data that you have, right? Kaggle, we all know, if you or other data sources, there are plenty of credit data, mortgage data, housing price data that's publicly available. That could be a good approach to derive a certain methodology, but, the solution is not ready to use copy and paste, right? So you have to think about these different challenges when it comes to data. And then lastly, Beverly, we've worked with on this, many times, is that whether it's a semester-long project, whether it's a hackathon that has limited time, you really want to think about how do you phrase your problem statement, right? If you start with something too super general, you want to go boil the ocean, right? The students can get lost very quickly because, this is one of the 5-10 courses they're taking.
That's
they have,
right.
A lot of time they haven't had that industry exposure. They might be having a hard time connecting the dots, or they get too creative, right? So framing that and being able to pivot, right? If you write into a technical issue or write into a business priority issue, right? Maybe one of the leads who was leading the projects get to work on something else. Now you have to have the student work on something, have to pivot the problem statement. You have to have the flexibility around that. And at the end of the day, how do you, again, actually turn this insight into action, right? Again, different companies may have different guideline around this, right? And the school may have requirements around who owns the IP at the end of the day, how much of that you can actually commercialize, right? Or it could be, purely as we're going to publish a paper, a white paper. We're going to co-write this, co-author this kind of research report that's for internal use only, right? You have to think through all these things up front. And again, it's, I wouldn't say I have everything figured out, or a lot of the partners have everything figured out. And with the labor market and, the legal environment evolving, just stay on top of things and build internal partnership with your legal and sourcing departments are very important.
Yeah, that's a really nice punch list. So for the listeners, I hope that they're taking notes here. So the biggest challenges include the legal side, the NDAs, especially if you're doing class-based projects, that can be really tricky. Data sourcing, consider things that are outside of proprietary, that are potentially open source, but there are options of hiring a zero-paid employee or treating them like an intern, making them legally a payroll type of thing. There's also questions around intellectual property, because you don't want the school to think, oh, we're going to get all this cool data and we can publish all these articles. And that's not the intent at all. Like, who's going to own the models and who's going to own, all the code? So you really got to think about IP. Also, the three things, these three kind of go together with as far as like scoping. You got to get it's got to be 14 weeks. You got to be able to answer it in 14 weeks. It's got to be, the capabilities have to be just right for the students at that moment. And the business problem itself, I mean, I've been in companies, there's just one that's in Atlanta. It was kind of funny. And they had this big wrestling match over which leader got to pick the project to do for that semester. So you got to find the right business problem in the organization that can be answered in a certain amount of time with the capabilities of the student. And then the last thing you mentioned was it's got to be something that you hope can get operationalized, that it can be put into production or used. Even if it's just insights, will somebody at least use it? So these are all really, really good considerations. Our last question, this has been super useful and very helpful. But our last question for you, Anqi, is what final piece of advice would you give somebody in the data science community trying to connect and leverage academic partnerships?
If I can pick one word, it would be intentionality, right? So you want to be intentional with how you are carrying out these partnership, right? You want to build a portfolio. Might not want to put all your eggs in one basket to work with only one university, right? Or one school in particular. And, really think about what are you trying to share and give and getting out of this this experience. So that think through the geographic, kind of location, right? Is that something your company, like for example, as we go through the merger, Heritage Sound Trust, we're headquartered here in Atlanta. We want to make sure we expand, with the new company, the Truist headquartered in Charlotte. We need to continue to grow and combine and again elevate some of the North Carolina, and even other schools. So we're all in digital world today, right? How can we leverage some of the national, footprint, right, to be able to manage this portfolio of schools and students and look for diversity of thought? And a lot of time that actually, I just recently gave a talk on the intersection of data science and ESG, right? The environmental, social, and governance impact. And that's another way you really want to check with, the CSR, the corporate social responsibility, the ESG team, even the diversity, equity, and inclusion departments at your company to see if there's an actual lens, a social aspect, a community aspect you can work into as part of this partnership, right? Maybe that means to mentor underprivileged or underrepresented students in data science. Maybe that means provide, scholarship and fellowship to, certain students to pursue a career in data science. So that intentionality is very, very important.
Nice.
Another thing is ensure there's financial backup. This is not a free game, right?
Yep.
And a lot of times that in order to get the best talent or the right type of talent that we're looking for, we want to make sure we have the right budget. Again, just like we run any other, investment project, you want to have at least a 3-year kind of roadmap build out. Maybe you want to start small with the 2 schools or 1 school first year, and how do you expand out over time as you start seeing more value out of these partnership, right? And then next one is to make sure you have good measures and metrics. Mm-hmm. It is very hard if you after year 1, you just say, okay, we did all this project. We, talked about, we spent all this money, right? Our teammates have put in this many hours to mentor students, which is great. But you also want to think about, again, tying back to the 3-pillar TLC, talent, learning, and community, right? Think about how many students have you actually hired, right? What are some of the IP that have generated from these research projects? How many hours have your teammates participated in these learning, experience in terms of upskilling, right? And maybe have a survey to get some tangible, qualitative feedback.
Yep.
What do people say? And, we've had people saying that, this is just such a, especially when the interns are here, it's such a, just a fresh experience to get a break from our day-to-day, right? And people have that sense of fulfillment and sense of a community as they participate in these type of activities.
Love it.
And lastly, really kind of going back to what we talk about the challenges is to prepare, right? Whether it's data collection, whether it's project problem, the problem statement framing or scoping, right? Whether it's offering that flexibility, whether it's coming up with metrics to measure, make sure you've done some homework up front before you launch to ensure a good experience from both the participating team and the students, as well as the leadership of the company as well. So
Fantastic.
That sums up my
oh my gosh,
advice.
Fantastic advice. So intentionality. Plan, make it a longer term investment, and be deliberate about your choice of schools. It's funny, I had an employer say, I don't know why we keep having our talent pipeline, like everybody comes out the same. And I'm like, you're only recruiting from one school. What do you expect?
Exactly.
In one program in one school. So intentionality, plan, make it deliberate, have a plan, like a longer term plan, measure, focus on the metrics, and just be ready. Get ready, because when you jump into an academic partnership and you're not ready, you just kind of waste the first 6 months of it, or even longer.
Bad optics too.
Yeah, it can be for sure. This has been really helpful. Thank you again so much to Anqi Zou for talking to us about connecting and leveraging academic partnerships within data science.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure.